guys, DC finally did it!
And could this be their best film yet?
Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, welcome to the horror show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I'm Ian Fuego here.
And this is one of those non-horror episodes, you guys. So, I apologize. Normally we're a horror show. You still get 10 to 12 other horror episodes this week, but we got to see a 2 or 3 week advanced screening of Shazam today, you guys. And I absolutely got out of the theater and utterly had to do a review of it. And Fuego went and saw it as well and is just as on board to do so. So that is what we're here to do. It actually comes out
April 5th.
April 5th.
April 5th, yeah. So it comes out same weekend as Pet Sematary. So like 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
Almost. Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna do this like we do our regular reviews, guys. We'll talk about our overall thoughts. We'll talk about the story, the acting, the effects, all of that's good stuff in turn, the directing, the cinematography, what have you. And I am so excited to get into this, you guys. And I think I'm going to echo something that Fuego said before we started that were my sentiments anyway. And that is, I think this absolutely, while it may not be my favorite superhero movie ever, because frankly Into the Spider-Verse set a pretty high bar, but I will say that I think this is definitely my favorite live-action DC movie that they've made. Honestly, all including everything, even including the old ones. Like, I really enjoyed this, just top to bottom, inside and out. There's one or two tiny gripes that I have, but honestly, I had a smile on my face through this entire movie, and for different reasons at different times. And my God, I just had so much fun. And finally, DC doesn't let us down with the third act.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And so much so that none of you guys that don't read Shazam, none of you guys that don't read this will see the third act coming. Fuego, did you see the third act coming?
This is what I gotta say. I don't know shiz about Shazam. Okay, so whereas you're deep entrenched in the lore and the history of the character and everything, I mean, I know he was called Captain Marvel. Honestly, all that I know about him really was from reading Kingdom Come, and where Luthor brainwashed him and he was like fighting with Superman and goes to like stop the missile or whatever. That's really all that I know, and that he's about as powerful as Superman. But I don't know really anything about the character. I didn't know because in Kingdom Come he's grown up, so I didn't know about the boy transforming into this adult hero or anything like that. So this was all totally new to me. And as I said before we started filming, this is my favorite DC movie, I think, above, maybe not above Batman Begins, but the current crop of DC films, this new Reich of DC. And it did, for what a character I knew jack about, what Guardians and Ant-Man did for me. That's how much I love this movie.
Awesome. That is really a great way to put it. And quite frankly, there's not a lot of dissimilarities between the theme of Guardians and the theme of Shazam. I mean, Shazam is about a runaway that finds family in a very unlikely place, and Guardians is about a runaway that finds family in a very unlikely place. Like, it is, you're absolutely right, and I didn't actually see that comparison until you just made it. But
yeah, they're outcasts that get close with people when they were just so guarded and just cast aside and everything, and trying to seek some form of redemption almost a little bit after getting dealt a nasty hand. And yeah, man, I love this movie.
Oh my God, it's so good, and I'm so excited to talk about it, and I'm so glad that you liked it the way that you did. And I'll tell you this much, you guys, the theater experience in this screening, the whole theater got into this movie. They were laughing, they were cheering, like everyone was on board this movie all the way through. And there are lots of reasons for that, and we're going to get into them. And again, we're going to keep this non-spoiler. We're going to keep it non-spoiler because it is so worth it for you guys to have certain things spoiled yourself, including the appearance of an actor in a role that
Yes,
is
yeah, I
closing.
know.
He's closing the loop. He's closing the loop in something that he began long, long ago. And I had this huge grin every time he was on camera. I was like, yes, yes, yes. It was so.
Is it something that happens in the third act?
Yep.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about, and maybe since I was going to review this on Infuegotainment separately, and you were going to do a separate horror show, I'm glad because I wanted to talk with somebody about this. Honestly, with as excited and pumped up as I was when I walked out of this theater, I sent Cecil a photo, and I'm just like, with Captain Marvel, the little stand-up that they had in the lobby, I was just
send me the pic. I'll drop it in.
I was so enthused and so happy. Yeah, I should just send it right now.
But yeah, dude, it was so good, so much fun. But okay, so let's break it down. Let's be careful too. But that one thing I had to mention. I absolutely had to mention it. But so let's start with the story. Okay, the story is about Billy Batson, who is a runaway, but not only a runaway, he's actually got a purpose. Like, this is just one of the many things that I'll get to when we go through our thoughts on the story, and that is, to me, basically every single person had an arc in this movie, and that is so awesome to see. And like, there's a lot of characters that would require an arc, and they all pretty much have them, big and small, and it's so rewarding, so rewarding. So Billy Batson is basically he's a runaway, he's an orphan because of something that happened as a kid. As a kid, he gets lost from his family, and so he then spends years trying to sort of find them, and he unfortunately is unsuccessful, and he goes from foster family to foster family, and that's sort of the backstory that we get. And he happens into this newest foster family, and when he does, there's other events that happen concurrently, which is something that I wanted to mention, because this movie actually doesn't necessarily start off with the origin of our hero. This movie starts off with a different origin altogether, which I gotta say, thank you, DC, for actually putting the time and effort to actually do this and develop the character like you should in these movies, in these superhero movies. Certain characters oftentimes are very underdeveloped. Not the case in Shazam. And I was very appreciative of that. And we also get a sort of cameo, almost cameo-ish role from an actor that had a very large role in another superhero TV show that ran for quite a few seasons. So there's a lot to latch onto in the DC universe, no less. So so basically, Billy Batson arrives at the foster family at the same time that the bad guy that we find out about, that we learn about, played by Mark Strong.
Yeah, tons and tons of stuff that guy's been in, man.
Absolutely, but most specifically, comic book related, the Kingsman movies, as well as I'm not sure if he was in 2, but he was also in Kick-Ass.
He was Kick-Ass, yeah. He was in Rock and Rolla. I want to say he was in Stardust too. So he's done a few things with Matthew Vaughn. Actually, he's a homie of that guy.
He was Sinestro in Green Lantern.
Yeah.
So he's not unfamiliar with comic book movies, but he plays Dr. Sivana, who is one of Captain Marvel, aka Shazam's #1 villains, and he does such an amazing job. So basically, the way Billy Batson becomes Captain Marvel ties in with sort of the villain story. So I hesitate to go terribly in depth, but you do see in the trailer that the wizard Shazam calls Billy forth to, you know, have him take on the role of his champion and go and do good on Earth. And so that's...
If I can interject real quick, I thought the casting of the Wizard Shazam was also hilarious, because just a couple weeks ago I saw him in Captain Marvel.
And he's in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, he's all over the place. Very talented actor, man.
Jaime Hansu.
Jaime Hansu, yeah. Yeah, he's awesome, man. Pretty much everything that guy does. He's badass.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so that's the story. Captain Marvel, like, Billy Batson becomes a hero, And his foster brother, new foster brother Freddy, who is the funny disabled kid from the trailer, who also steals the show, I think, in a lot of scenes.
And he stole the show in a lot of scenes as Eddie in the It movie, So
I forgot that was him too.
Yeah,
Jeez.
dude, he was quick with the quips in that too, but he was just even more refined, I thought, and his delivery, his performance. I really, you're right. He stole the show in a lot of ways, man.
He was very charismatic, but we'll get to the acting. So
yeah,
it's basically the crux of the story is Billy adjusting to having to deal with this new foster family while also trying to achieve his ultimate goal of finding his real family. So that is the crux of his arc. Meanwhile, he has sort of another arc as Shazam, where he has to sort of not only learn how to be a superhero, but earn how to be a superhero. In other words, like he has to realize his importance and his responsibility and stuff like that. So again, even his superhero personality has an arc in the film, and almost all of the Foster family have arcs as well. Like, it's just so entertaining and such a good, fun story with really great dialogue that made me laugh so many times. Like, I laughed as many times in this movie as I did watching the original Hangover when it came out. Like that, and I thought that was one of the funniest movies I'd ever seen. This is really funny movie. It's on the level with Guardians of the Galaxy humor-wise, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it, man. Guardians and Ant-Man, I both laughed hysterically throughout, and yet they had such a warm heart at the core of the storytelling too, and this most definitely succeeds in that.
Absolutely. So, your overall thoughts on the story? I obviously loved it.
Yeah, I adored it too, man. It warmed my heart, and just the dynamic between Freddy and Billy was just so good, and it had a serious arc too. It had peaks and valleys. There's points where their friendship is tested. And yet their camaraderie, especially as he's trying to the process of elimination with trying to figure out powers, was just so funny. I was really amused by the implementation of social media in the storytelling. I thought was amusing as well, and so on. But I mean, even just how standoffish Billy was, and just not wanting to just bond and be a part of a family, and he's ran away so many different times. I mean, you really believed in that. I would say, if I could say anything, it's maybe because of the fact that I'm not as familiar with Savannah, but I was going to say in an Infuegotainment review that I felt like personally the villain had Marvel villainitis a little bit. I did not find him particularly compelling. I found his introduction at the beginning of the movie interesting, but as an adult and with just the powers that he's able to gain and everything, that's maybe the only kind of weaker link in the film for me. But everything else, I thought was really strong. So
I guess that's fair. I had enough, but that's no. Well, he had way more development than the Ant-Man villain.
Yeah,
he did. And so I bought into him more, and I thought that he had more than enough. Than was that. Excuse me. Let me rephrase. I feel like they did well enough with the time they could appropriately allot him in a movie about Shazam. You know what I mean? Especially with all the other things they had to set up with Shazam himself, and it was still like a 2-hour and 2-minute movie, right? Yeah. So it still was way 2 hours long. So I guess they could have pushed it and maybe made it 2:10 and added a little bit more about him. I guess you're maybe right there, but I felt like it worked enough, and so I didn't particularly mind that, but I can see where you might see that.
And that's just my perspective as somebody who doesn't really know much about the villain, So yeah.
Well, it was a little bit surface level-y for him, but I still feel like
I thought
it was more than we still got with what's his name, Darkseid's kid or whatever, the one that we got in Justice League.
Justice League is for me, Justice League is the worst of the current DCEU films, even more so than Aquaman. So
Aquaman was good. What are you talking about?
Aquaman was good, but it
Aquaman
definitely
was. How dare you mention it in the same like breath as
Breath
worst?
is Justice League.
Jesus Christ, that's terrible.
Well, if I was gonna rank, I would go Justice League at the very, very dead bottom, and then I would probably I'd say Aquaman would probably be my next one up.
What? Batman v
by
Superman was way worse than Aquaman. You're fucking nuts. Anyway, let's get back to Shazam. Let's get back to Shazam. So, Shazam obviously worked story-wise. Let's talk about the acting. Everyone I really liked in this one. I didn't particularly think anyone stood out as a bad actor in this. There was maybe one scientist lady that was like grating on me a little bit, but then, you know.
Yeah, we know.
The movie took its course and I was pleased. So
that was a good scene.
But otherwise, honestly, the kid that played Billy did great. All of the foster kids did great. The foster parents did great, and honestly, the foster father, who's from Walking Dead, right?
Yeah,
was so awesome. He did such a great job. But all the kids specifically, they all had specific personalities, and all the specific personalities do come into play in a very particular way later in the movie. So I loved that. Especially,
they're all very well developed, man.
I especially loved the one that played video games and how that worked into it later.
Yeah, in the third act was so great.
Was so entertaining.
But
anyway, this freaking the acting was just phenomenal, and Zachary Levi.
Yeah,
did such a great job being a man.
Chuck, right?
Yeah, Chuck, and I mean a number of other things, but he's done so much at this point that he was also in he's one of the Warriors 3 in the Thor movies.
Thor, yeah, I thought I thought so.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, he's not a stranger to superhero movies either, but he did so well because again, this is a 14-year-old kid in an adult's body when he's the superhero. And they play it up, but they play it up even more in ways that you didn't see in the trailer that might be considered maybe a little iffy in a family-friendly advertising environment. Like, what would a 14-year-old boy and his brother try and accomplish as 14-year-old boys? Like,
Hot wings.
Yeah, hot wings, sure. But it's fun, you know. It's they play that up, and it adds humor, it adds heart. It just.
And now I was just thinking of another scene at that spot where it's just not my thing. That made me laugh. Yeah. That made me laugh so hard.
Yeah, well, and honestly, that's you know,
another notch in the belt of just covering so many bases.
Tells you something about that character too, if you think about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. It was great. It was great though. I loved it.
Yeah. So anyway, did you? I mean, and again, I loved Mark Strong. While his character may not be as deeply developed as you want, it was more so than a lot of other superhero movies that we get, he just delivers and has a regality and a presence that, say, you know, the villain in Venom doesn't have, or he's or the actor that's playing Jafar in the upcoming Aladdin clearly doesn't have.
No, Mark Strong was good. He had one scene in particular that I thought was very compelling, and that was the boardroom scene. I thought that was really, really well executed. And when we get into the effects, I'll have to mention that bit as well. But I mean, yeah, Levi was great, and he captured the whimsy of a child and just astonishment and everything, feeling so new, and just that youthful vibrance and everything. He really did. I mean, they've, in all the promotional materials, been comparing this to Big as a superhero movie, and there's even that one nod in the film that we won't mention, which it warmed my heart. I thought it was great. But
how about this one moment, Fuego, without ruining it? We don't know if it's the costume or the guy. And then what happened immediately after was like, oh, it was awesome.
Oh my god, so good.
All right, so
acting was great, top to bottom. Though, even if I had some issues with how the guy was written at times, I mean, Mark Strong, I've seen him in enough things where he is just kills it, man.
Now, just real quick, as a bit of an interlude, you guys, I did hold this up before. This is the current Shazam comic book by DC. This is currently only 3 issues in, And here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to show you the numbers of 2 and 3 without actually showing you the covers, because, quite frankly, the covers are spoilers for the movie. Honestly, what I think...
Very well-timed relaunch.
It is, and what I think is this storyline, I believe, might be the sequel. So, if you really want to... If you enjoy the movie and you want to get a jump on what the sequel is going to be about, I believe a lot of it is going to come from this. Okay, I want to get into... I have a little list of points I want to make before we're out. So let's get into the effects, Fuego. Now, here's the thing. This is where my one gripe comes in. Your one gripe was the villain. My one gripe is, while a lot of the CG effects looked really good in this, especially the lightning effects, the lighting effects, a lot of the flying effects, and... especially the mano-a-mano flying and fighting effects, that's all still of the same Man of Steel sort of quality. Here's the thing. This is what became both a positive and a negative of the movie for me. There is absolutely a scene that could be considered horror in this movie.
Which is why I seceded and we're doing this here.
Now... one of the things that happens is, there's a whole thing that's tied into the Shazam world. So, you know, the wizard Shazam, played by Jaime Hansu, lives in the Rock of Eternity, and he watches over the imprisoned embodiments of the 7 deadly sins. That is the story. And so that comes into play in this movie. And so there are, at times, CG representations of different monstrous forms of the 7 deadly sins. And that, to me, is awesome, because all of the they're all designed a little differently, and it's awesome. I absolutely loved the designs of them.
Agreed.
Unfortunately, when they actually get out and start affecting the regular world, at times it did not look super great.
No, it didn't. I will totally concur. Maybe that was another reason why, since that was so directly tied in with, Savan and stuff, maybe that was another reason why I was just like, his villain's okay, but just his, like, henchman creature, whatever you want to classify them as, they look... I mean, the designs were cool. There's one that looks like Goro, and which I thought was especially funny with one scene in the film and another.
Well, I like that one represented greed because it had more hands to grab things with.
Yeah,
I was like, that makes sense. And then the gluttony one was just this huge fat one that entire stomach opened up like the Thing. Like, I was like, these are some dope creature designs, man. Like, I really, really dug that.
So was that from the comics then? It was, right?
Oh yeah, that's happened.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But those particular designs on the creatures though?
There were some tweaks and stuff, but largely, yeah, those have been represented before. Yeah. They did such a great job though, and how they tied in with Sivana, like, was really cool. Like Sivana, they portrayed him really, really well. I'll drop a picture of what the comic book likeness looks like. Normally he's got massive buck teeth, like Bugs Bunny buck teeth. And it's funny that they picked Mark Strong, who notoriously does have a crooked front tooth. Well,
he's British, right? I mean,
yeah, well, all right, fair enough. But yeah, nonetheless, someone's messaging me. I wish I could turn those off. God bless it. Here they go. Stop, Susie, stop it.
It's the group thread. Sorry, everyone.
Why do they always do that? Fucking things. They have to message a million times. All right, mute conversation. Jesus, mute it.
There you go.
All right, sorry guys, no more of those. Anyway, our group thread gets a little crazy sometimes. So,
sorry.
Continuing on now, the rest of the effects, Fuego. What were your thoughts on the rest of them?
I thought the flying stuff especially stood out for me. I mean, it was on par with some of my favorites. Like, I always compare it when it's done very, very well to like DBZ, because I was a big DBZ fan, and I mean Chronicle did it exceptionally well.
Yes.
I thought Man of Steel did it really, really well, perhaps even better than it was done in DBS.
I kind of agree. The Superman Zod fight is pretty hard to top.
It's badass, man, and this didn't top it, but this was, at least as far as just the clarity of everything, the speed of the flight and everything. I mean, I thought it all looked really dope. Transformations were good. Yeah, and I mean, if we're even going to segue into like cinematography and just the look of it, I love that this was filmed in Philadelphia. I just got done watching the 2 Creed movies, and so I've been seeing a lot of Philly lately.
I rented that. I was going to watch that tonight, actually.
Oh, they're terrific, man. They're really, really awesome.
I love the first one. I've just never seen the second, so.
I'd never seen the first one, so I did a double header and watched both. And it's a cool city, man. And man, there's some tie-ins with Rocky in this without spoiling.
Yeah, yeah.
So wonderfully in both like just locale and in music. One scene in particular,
yeah,
so good. Oh, that made me laugh my ass off.
Oh
so
man,
good.
yeah, no, Rocky fans will dig the hell out of it. Absolutely, yeah, it is a very Philadelphia movie. And
beautifully shot throughout the city. It looked great.
And there's a lot of gags. There is actually a ton of gags that they didn't show you in the movie, or in the trailers rather. There's more to. They show you them coming out of the convenience store with beers in their hands, like, hey, thanks, and you're welcome for not being robbed. But there's a joke after that you don't see in the trailer that's like, that's great, and then it's compiled with another joke immediately after that when they walk back out of the store again, and it's
even another joke before that, with his head, and it was just so great.
Oh my god, that was the best. And like the fact that it's like literally, here's the thing, like there's 2 different points of entry into this movie. There's those of us that would be Freddy with the cell phone trying to document everything if your best friend became a superhero. And then there's the point of view of people that are going to put themselves, what if I became a superhero and I don't know how to do any of this? I was thinking, I'm like, how would I know how to fly? Like, how does Superman know to just defy gravity and I don't.
That's why those scenes were so great.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. It's so tremendous, and it's well thought out stuff that we don't see explored that often, and it's just fun. Like, this movie is just capital F-U-N fun all the way through it. And honestly, it's so heartfelt. The moment, like, the betrayal on the little sister's face when he, like, said, hey, we don't have to hug all the time. Like, oh my god, like, it was all golden. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's where, I mean, maybe I enjoyed the brooding nature of some of the Batman Begins Dark Knight stuff better, and but this was the most fun I have ever had in any DC character ever put to screen. Ever.
I honestly, I agree with you. This is a return to the I'm trying to figure out the right word to put it. I guess the overall essence of the original Richard Donner Superman, with the goody-goodiness of it. Like, they do the holy moly, and they do the oh geez and stuff like that, which is a staple of Captain Marvel, aka Shazam. And this just felt wholesome. It felt like there was a message, and the message is family. And I love that. Same message as Guardians of the Galaxy, like you pointed out. Like, but you feel so good by the end of the movie, and like it does something in the third act that we cannot spoil, but when it happens,
so
you're just
awesome.
Like you feel like the Grinch. Your heart grows 6 sizes.
Yeah, it's legit.
And I won't say why it's 6 sizes over 3. Your heart grows 6 sizes that act.
Yeah, there's a kid who's a big gamer in the foster home, and this is the equivalent of Mario eating a mushroom. It's leveling up in the third act. They level up this third act better than in any DC film before. Maybe even there's few Marvel films that could even compare to the third act here as far as sheer pure fun. And while I may have had some issues with the villain just here and there and whatever, the final fight is awesome, dude. Like, so awesome.
Dude, how funny was the suitcase wedgie rescue? That was the greatest thing.
And how could I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that I was very amused by the fact that, kind of in the timeline where this film takes place as far as the DCEU goes, and it's a world that's very well aware of superheroes, most notably Batman and Superman, who, when there's a fight in a mall and there's like costumes everywhere and toys everywhere, and Freddy is obsessed with superheroes. He's obsessed with Batman and Superman. And it was
not just them.
Yeah, he's wearing a certain shirt in one scene, possibly a post-credit scene that made me laugh very, 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 very hard. You have to stay till the very end credits for this
Absolutely.
one, guys.
There's two. There's a mid-credits and a post-credits. And honestly, the mid-credits is a payoff of something that just sort of is alluded to in the movie 2 different times, which the first time it happened is very early in the movie when a character goes to the Rock of Eternity. We see something, just a little box somewhere on a rock on a shelf with something inside it, and I was like, oh, I can't believe they just showed us that. And then it comes into play again later, and then it comes into play again later. And some people are gonna be like, what the hell is that? That's so stupid. But the fact that they're doing that means that comics really are coming to life. Like, whoever thought you'd see that in an actual live-action comic book? Fuego, you don't even know what that is,
no.
But how silly could that be to anyone if it wasn't a comic book movie?
True. But I mean, even still, then, but yet it's one of those where even the absurdity of characters like Guardians or a hero like Ant-Man, it's one that I think the general audience, because there is almost like a self-loathing kind of humor about the essence of the character, like the costume is ragged on a couple times, and I mean, it doesn't take itself supremely seriously, which works so perfect for this form of storytelling. And I think that casual audiences, like I'm a hardcore comic movie fan, but I'm only a hardcore comic person with certain characters. I'm not as deeply entrenched, and I think even the casual movie fan will embrace this film for just that enjoyment level that it brings. It's able to rope you in with that heart, with that warmth, and with just the fun that is just, it's all throughout, man. Non-stop, start to finish. It's great.
Awesome. To echo your sentiments, though, I think the cinematography was really good in this movie. I didn't touch on it like I probably should have. Everything is told beautifully. There's endearing close-ups when they need to be. There's beautiful cinematographic shots all throughout, especially tying into sort of the Rocky illusion that Fuego was talking about. Like, just some beautiful shots, some gorgeous vistas, and just even mid-action, there's a lot of really cool, you could almost take virtually any frame and single it out as a really good, like, frame of a comic book panel. Like, it's that good. So the sound is standard superhero sound design, but I thought it was really cool too. Just nothing that, I don't know.
Yeah, and
out of big sound.
Yeah, absolutely. I would point more to the soundtrack. I mean, we've got some great Ramones in the post credits and some of those Rocky nods, and you've got like some 21 Pilots and stuff like that all the kids will like throughout the movie. So I mean, yeah, it's a nice varied soundtrack, but boy, when that song from one of the Rocky movies pops up, man, it's one of the best scenes in the whole movie. I was dying. It was great.
So that largely covers it, you guys. I just want to touch base. Yeah, there's definitely some Easter eggs for comic book fans. Act 3 is amazing, especially if you haven't read the comics. You won't see it coming. Even
though I haven't read the comics, the third act was so supremely satisfying for what they decided to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's uplifting, legit.
Everyone has arcs, like I said. Yeah, as I mentioned early on, the audience response was phenomenal. Everyone in the theater had a good time. There was audible reactions all the way throughout, a feather in its cap. And the 2 post-credit scenes, or the mid-credit and the post-credit scene. And the question is, Fuego, there was a lot of talk about whether or not there would be any cameos or not, so we won't reveal.
We won't say who.
We won't reveal.
I mean, there's a lot of speculation. People were saying, "Oh, could Superman be in it? Could The Rock be in it as Black Adam?" We're not going to tell you anything. So.
Yeah, I had my hopes, and it might not be someone that you'd be expecting either. It might not be either one of them, to be honest with you. But it was interesting what they decided.
And there's
to do.
and the way just the way they did the end, not the end credits, but like the initial credits, which often in films in this day and age are like just a more vibrant and like lively animated almost sort of thing. Then you see a bunch of different DC characters in the initial end credits, and there's some really funny scenes, man.
It really is.
Yeah, there's members of the Justice League, I guess that's all we'll say, who are also like referenced throughout this movie.
There's animated interactions that we get to see not in the regular movie, so it's fun. It's totally fun. So guys, long and short of it is, you should absolutely go and see this movie immediately when it comes out. It is so entertaining. It is a good date movie. It is a good family movie. It is a good solo movie. No matter who or what you are, go and watch Shazam and you will be cheered up. It is so much fun. Fuego, final thoughts?
Absolutely. Even if you went into it like me, knowing next to nothing about the character, even if you don't know anything about the character, there is something for pretty much everybody to find enjoyment. And there were so many casual people who went and saw Guardians and Ant-Man, like I said, and didn't know anything about them, and they walked out adoring these characters. I felt the same here.
Honestly. So, yep. I think that's as good as we're going to do for a non-spoiler review. Maybe we'll do a spoiler once the movie comes out. We'll see. But until then, you guys, go ahead and make sure you see this. Once you do, come back and let us know what you thought in those comments down below. Let us know if you haven't seen it yet, if you're excited or not. I'd be interested to hear y'all's opinion. Again, this, quite frankly, is better than a lot of the Marvel movies, in my opinion. A lot of them. So,
absolutely.
So definitely make sure you set aside some time to watch this. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, I've been Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, guys, stay scared.